Hello friends, my name is Saurabh Chaturvedi and I welcome you all for the question answer discussion session for UPSC Civil Services Mains 2022. From this prestigious platform of Drishti, we are going to discuss the questions related to governance in this session. As you all know that governance is the part which we generally see in paper 2, where we have polity and social justice. Also, some topics of governance are the part of paper 4 that generally we know as ethics, where the citizen charter, RTI, e-governance, corporate governance kind of topics are there. So, in overall scenario, if we see the questions of governance, then one can derive that every year we have the questions right from 40 marks to 75 marks from the sphere of governance. I have a slide for you to tell you the questions in last 5 years, and as you can see that from 2017 to 2022, more or less we have the questions of 50 to 60 marks from here. And if we'll include certain questions which are in between the polity, social justice and governance, and if we count them into the governance, then like the institutional questions and the questions related to, you can say, the civic bodies or the civil society, then you will say that the questions from this particular sections are too many as compared to any other section. What we generally see that the functional aspects of polity as well as the social justice are generally asked in the part of governance. If I analyze the question paper of this year, there are people who found it difficult, and there are people who considered that there is no direct question coming from the governance, because when we talk about governance, then there are certain words like good governance, e-governance, corporate governance, local governance. All these words are not directly the part of questions this year. Quite strange that this time the questions from civil society like the NGOs, self-help groups or voluntary organization is not having any direct mention, and that is why we generally feel that no direct questions are asked from the governance. What I believe that in this year's paper we have most of the questions, what you say, in the framework of public policy. So in public policy, they have asked the questions related to welfare programs. In the policy implementation, they have asked the question related to direct benefits. And for the developmental policies, from where the funds can be collected, so there is a question in Gati Shakti scheme, and there is another question related to the donor agencies. So overall, what we can say that in this year, we have the questions more related to public policy process. That is the public policy making, public policy execution, public policy evaluation. And in this public policy execution, we generally see various welfare programs, developmental programs, and role of the various agencies in these developmental programs. And most of the questions this year hang around there or related to this periphery of public policy and the welfare schemes. But in crux, what we can say that this time most of the questions are of functional execution of the nature, or you can say the theory that we study in polity and social justice. Now the implementation of that theory is being asked, as it is always asked, in the framework of governance. Moving ahead, if we see the areas from where the questions of governance are there this time. So as I said, that the issues related to governmental policies, developmental schemes and their implementation. Now we have 3 questions from there, 2 10 markers and 1 15 marker. And as I said, that there is no direct question from NGOs, self-help groups, voluntary organizations, pressure groups, etc. But the questions related to donor agency and the questions related to PPP model in the Gati Shakti Yojana, it has more linkage with the economics as compared to any other topic. So now in the governance, this economic part is becoming vital, and in the present time when government is coming out with new logistic policy, which can be called an extension of the Gati Shakti scheme only, when the government is willing to go with national monetization scheme or monetization pipeline, where they are there to generate the funds. So you can say that in governance issue, fiscal governance, financial governance becomes an important aspect. Also, the two questions that we have mentioned here in the framework of transparency and accountability, they have the direct relation with that economic aspect of governance. So this is how we are discussing 5 questions over here. And if we include constitutional, quasi-judicial and regulatory agencies, or constitutional, statutory, quasi-judicial agencies, then there is one question related to National Commission for Backward Commission, and how the status from statutory to constitutional changed its dimension. So that question was there, but I think that question is already discussed in our polity discussion, so I'm not going to take that question. But if you can include that question, then there are 6 questions which can be directly associated to the governance. So one by one, now we'll move ahead with this discussion of governance question. And as I said, that the social sector initiatives of the government and the financial sector initiatives of the government are the questions from where we see the various things coming in the governance. So the first question here is, to what extent, in your opinion, decentralization of power in India has changed the governance landscape at the grassroots? So as I always say, that when you read the question, find out the building blocks of the question from the question itself. And in this question, which is of 150 words, first they are asking about your opinion, and your opinion should always be neutral. So whenever you are giving opinion about decentralization, about the delusion of power, then you should have a neutral view by defining the positives and negatives at the same time. Here they are asking our opinion about the decentralization of power. So here we need to define that how the decentralization of power is being executed in India since independence, and how this decentralization of power is going to change the governmental or governance landscape, or you can say Chal Charitra Chehra of the governance. How we are going to change the landscape means the overall nature of the governance is going to change with decentralization. So as there are 150 words, then we'll move ahead in this manner. Initially, we will explain decentralization with its benefits and different forms in say around 30 to 40 words. Then we'll move ahead with the process of decentralization in India in different ways, in a historical perspective. This again can be the part of 30 to 40. Then say in around 60 plus words, we are going to define the positives of different kind of decentralization. It is not only about the political decentralization in the form of local government or the constitutional status to Panchayati Raj bodies. We'll also discuss decentralization in the form of administrative decentralization, financial decentralization. And after this, at the end, we will say that although a lot of efforts are made, but yes, there are various limitations in this process of decentralization which we need to take care of. So 60 around words can be there, and around in 20-25 words you can end the answer. So this is how I plan this question in around 150 words, because word limit is very important, and when we go with the questions of local government decentralization, then you have a lot to write. So the framework of answer becomes very much important. Now, as I said, that we will introduce our answer with the benefits of decentralization. So we can start by saying that decentralization is the delusion of power at the different level in government, in bureaucracy, and in the form of finance. So, political decentralization, administrative decentralization, and financial decentralization is going to change the nature of governance at the grassroots level. And with this process of decentralization, we can not only ensure effective delivery, effective service delivery, capacity building of the grassroots people, but we can control the regional sentiments so that the integration of nation can be ensured. So I'm telling you again that in the beginning we will say that if centralization is the concentration of power at the top, decentralization is the division of power at the different levels of government. And this division of power can be seen in the form of political decentralization, administrative decentralization, and fiscal or financial decentralization. And this is going to change the governmental landscape in the form of effective service delivery, effective capacity building, and controlling the regional sentiments. So, in this introduction, you have defined decentralization, types of decentralization, and the benefits of decentralization as a whole. And after defining this, you will say that this process of decentralization in India progressed in different way. For political decentralization, we had the federal structure, which was two-tier federation, later on converted into the three-tier with the help of Article 40 Balwant Rai Mehta recommendation, and then with 73rd and 74th Amendment. The administrative decentralization we can see in the form of three-tier services, in the form of central services, state services, and one service that moves between them in the form of All India services. Although the administrative decentralization in the form of local services is still not there, which can be defined as the limitation. And when it comes to financial decentralization, then you can say that in the part 12 of our constitution, from article 264 to 292, there are various provisions of the division of financial power between the center and state. And after 73rd, 74, this financial delusion can be seen from state to the local government also. So again, in this part 2, you can define the process of decentralization in the form of political decentralization, administrative decentralization, and financial decentralization. Now, as you entered into the question, now you defined the process of decentralization. Now this is time that you come out with the benefits of the different type of decentralization to make it a reality that it has definitely changed the governmental landscape. So here you can use either a chart or paragraph to define that how political decentralization, administrative decentralization, and financial decentralization helped us in changing the governmental landscape. In political decentralization, what we have seen that we are going to have a bottom-up approach. We are going to have the idea of Antyodaya. We have seen that we are having the decentralized planning to mobilize the local needs and the local resources. We can have more realistic planning as compared to the centralized planning that we used to have previously. The empowerment of weakened section is the another benefit. Then you can say that the transparency, accountability in the governmental programs, welfare programs can be ensured through this. And definitely political decentralization is going to make political awareness and democratic structure more viable as compared to any other kind of decentralization. So decentralization is the tool to democracy development. This political decentralization is a tool for democracy development, delegation, and this is how it is going to change the governmental landscape in the form of good governance. So here you can mention that a new idea of government emerges with the political decentralization that we call good governance, because good governance has the pillars of transparency, accountability, participation, all these kind of things, sensitivity, etc. Now, when it comes to administrative decentralization, you can say that it is going to enhance the government people connect. It is going to reduce the administrative lag. The aspiration of people and the ability of bureaucracy can come together. But the most important benefit will be the service delivery, effective service delivery at the grassroots level, especially in the case of community services to the vulnerable sections. Definitely, this kind of decentralization is going to help in controlling the red tapeism, corruption, and delay in work. Also, this is going to bring transparency, accountability, sensitivity, and you can say this relevance in the governance. So you can say that our administrative setup is also changing, and it is changing in the form of e-governance, you can say. So you can introduce the word e-governance, that in the form of e-governance we see administration at your doorstep, administration 24/7, 365. Now, when it comes to financial decentralization, it will help the states, the local government in their fiscal management. It will save them from the debt trap. It will help in local resource mobilization. It will help them in arranging the funds of development at the local level. It will reduce their dependence upon center or state. And in this way, financially viable governments, financially viable administration is going to help in changing the governmental landscape in the form of, you can say that when we go with PPP mode, then there can be the possibility of corporate governance here. So the three words of governance, good governance, e-governance, and corporate governance, although I am using it in a specific way, but you can say that with all these kind of benefits, we can have the new dimension of administration or governance in the form of good governance, e-governance, corporate governance, or you can say the governance at your doorstep. And once you have defined all this, then at the end you can say that although a lot of benefits are being achieved with the help of this kind of decentralization, but they had their own limitation. Like in political decentralization, we still lack the delegation of power from center to state and state to the local government. The 29 and 18 subjects of 11th and 12th schedule is still awaited or not completely diluted to the local government. When it comes to administrative decentralization, we can see that the central and state government have their own services, but the local government are dependent upon the state services. So administrative decentralization not in line with political decentralization in India, because political decentralization is at the 3 level, but administrative decentralization can be seen at the two levels only. So we need to have local civil services to implement the subjects which are given to the local government. And when it comes to financial decentralization, then what we can see that center is more strong, whether it is the tax collection is concerned, tax capabilities are concerned, and with the new initiatives like GST and new reforms, what we have seen that the economic financial powers or the financial powers of the decentralized government, that is the state and local government, are diluting day by day. So if we really want to change the governmental landscape with the help of decentralization, what we need to correct these limitations at the different level. And this is how you can end this answer, although I have defined it in a quite detailed manner. But if you can follow that word limit, then you can answer all the aspects of this question in this dimension. So let us move ahead with another next question. And the next question is, the Gati Shakti Yojana needs meticulous coordination between the government and the private sector to achieve the goal of connectivity. Discuss. It is about Gati Shakti Yojana, and they are saying that this Gati Shakti Yojana is going to achieve connectivity in India. But for the success of this Gati Shakti Yojana, we need to have coordination between governmental and the private sector. So the framework of this answer will goes like, it is 150 word question. You will say in the beginning that why do we need, either we can start that why do we need PPP for the purpose of infrastructural development. Then after these 30 words, you will explain Gati Shakti Yojana in say around 50 to 60 words. Then you will suggest different areas where different areas of Gati Shakti Yojana where the coordination, the connection between government and private sector is possible. And this can be again the 30 words. And in the last, in 50 to 60 words, you are going to define that how government and private sector can help each other, how they can achieve this meticulous coordination so that the infrastructural connectivity can get strengthened in India. So this is the overall framework in which we need to answer this. In the beginning, what you can say that Government of India recently introduced a new logistic policy having the objective to reduce the logistic cost from 14% to say 10%. And this logistic policy is nothing but the extension of the Gati Shakti Yojana that government introduced to bring coordination in the infrastructural project. This is one way. The second way can be that Government of India believes that infrastructural development can be performed with PPP model so that they can concentrate more in the social development aspects. So, association of private sector in the infrastructural project is going to help government not only saving the logistic cost, but ensuring the welfare of people or ensuring the welfare schemes can be implemented in an easy manner. So in any way you can introduce your question while explaining that Gati Shakti scheme is related to the new logistic policy and we are there to save the logistic cost. We are there to coordinate between the ministries. Now after this, you are going to explain Gati Shakti Yojana and you will say that Gati Shakti Yojana provides a digital platform for 16 almost 16 ministries so that they can come together in planning, execution, evaluation of the infrastructural project. With all the ministries working in different direction, the goal of 3E, that is economy, efficiency and effectiveness, cannot be achieved. And to attain this goal of 3E, we have decided to coordinate these 16 ministries on the platform of Gati Shakti Yojana. In Gati Shakti Yojana, we are going to club the different infrastructural projects related to road, rail, airport, port, electricity distribution, communication, etc. Because all these projects coincides with each other, and if we do it differently, then we are going to increase not only the cost but the time that we are going to spend in these developmental projects. Again, Bharatmala project, Sagarmala project, National Infrastructural Pipeline, monetization schemes, government asset monetization, all these things can be clubbed together under this Gati Shakti scheme, and we can coordinate between the electricity corridors, the road corridors, the rail networks or dedicated defense corridors. All these developmental projects can be clubbed together so that we can have the scale of economics in the process of infrastructural development. If required, you can define the 6 pillars of Gati Shakti Yojana were here, but if you are going to elaborate it, it is going to be too much word consuming. So what I'll suggest you just to mention the 6 pillars by saying that the 6 pillars of Gati Shakti scheme have the inherent tendency to bring government and private sector together, and they should come together in the comprehensiveness, that is all the infrastructural projects can be clubbed together, in prioritization, that in which sector we need to work first, in optimization, that is minimum input to have the maximum output, then in synchronization so that will not have repetition of work, in analytical, and here we can say so that we will have the coordination among the ministries and the dynamism where we can have the new projects in association with each other. Now, once you have defined this Gati Shakti scheme or Gati Shakti Yojana, now you can suggest that there are 5 and 6 areas where we can see the coordination between the public and the private sector. So the word meticulous coordination, where we need this meticulous coordination and how we are going to achieve this meticulous coordination, where you can define in road development, in rail network, in airport development, in electricity distribution, in 4G or 5G, you can say communication, in asset monetization. These are those areas where we need public and private sector to come together. Now, when they come together, they should have the mutual benefits. And how we are going to achieve these mutual benefit? You can put it like this, that here is government, here is private sector. Now government is going to give something to private sector, where private sector in return will give something to the government. What government is going to give to private sector, that is these are the areas of coordination, and these are, you can say, these are the areas where they are, and this is the technique or the methods through which they are going to coordinate. Government is going to provide easy land acquisition, single window clearance, environmental clearance, SEZ-like facilities, SEZs, industrial parks, etc. And with the help of all this, and you can say ease of doing business, and when government is providing these 4 or 5 things to the private sector, in return, private sector can provide fiscal strength by providing the funds, by introducing the new technology. They can bring their management, skillful management, as we see that most of the airports are now we are giving to the private sector. They can come out with various startups, the promotion of the sunrise industries like the IT, the pharmaceutical, the agro-processing. They can also help government in filling up the regional gap of development, where they can go to those areas and develop industries over there where it can work as a growth pole, idea of Gunnar Midder. We call it viability gap. So this viability gap, developmental gap, the regional aspiration gap can be filled with the help of private sector. This private sector is going to help them in asset monetization also, which government has decided to raise the fund from. And once you have defined all this, at the end you can say that the idea of logistic policy, logistic cost cutting with the help of Gati Shakti Yojana is a brilliant idea. What we need is to execute it without any political and bureaucratic hurdle, and with the help of public-private partnership in the form of good governance and corporate governance. PPP in the form of good governance from the governmental side and corporate governance from the side of the private sector. And this is how you can end this answer. And if you can answer this question in this manner, I think it will be a holistic view of this particular question. So now we'll move to the next question. The next question suggests that reforming the governmental delivery system through direct benefit transfer scheme is a progressive step, but it has its limitations to comment. So the question is very simple. The first thing that they want to discuss is governmental delivery system. And they are saying that this governmental delivery system is being upgraded, or you can say reformed, with the help of direct benefit transfer. And they are saying that this direct benefit transfer do have certain positives, but they have certain limitations also. And if there are the limitations, then you can suggest that how with the help of DBT we can make this delivery system more effective. So the question, again, it is in 150 word, can have the format where we can enter the question by saying that governmental delivery system, which is in the form of PDS and in other ways, have their own limitations. And because of these limitations, we introduced direct benefit system, which we can explain in 30 word. This is again in 30 word. Then you can suggest that this direct benefit scheme helped in various ways, where again the limitations correction can be there, but they do have certain limitations. And then this area you can define, say, in around 70-75 words, positives and negatives. And then at the end, in around 25 words, you can suggest the way forward. So this should be the format of this particular answer, which I consider one of the easy questions that came this year. You can start by saying that in the socialistic welfare state, delivery of goods and services to the deprived and vulnerable section is the core of good governance or welfare government. I'll say it again. In the socialistic welfare state, effective delivery of goods and services to the vulnerable section is essential for the purpose of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas. And to ensure the Achhe Din, it is required that this delivery system works in an efficient manner. So here you can use the words like Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. The development of from the grassroots, that is the Antyodaya. You can also define the word called Swaraj. So all these words can be introduced in the beginning or in the introduction to make your introduction more attractive. And once you have said this, then you will say that in this governmental delivery system, we have certain lacunas in the form of targeting the people, in the form of leakage of funds, in the form of proper evaluation. And because of these limitations, we decided to reform this delivery system with the help of direct benefit transfer. So this is how you entered the question, and now you are going to define this direct benefit transfer. So now in the second para or second part, you will say this direct benefit transfer is the governmental delivery scheme where you provide financial incentives, various kind of subsidies to the deprived people directly in their account with the help of JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile. Again, I'm saying that direct benefit transfer is the scheme through which you provide financial incentives and different kind of subsidies in the cash manner to the deprived class, to the BPL people with the help of JAM Trinity, fertilizer subsidy, gas subsidy like Pahal, and sometimes the PDS subsidy we are trying to link with that. This direct benefit transfer scheme definitely revolutionized our governmental delivery system with the positives, like now we are going to define the positive: financial inclusion, monetization of rural economy, abolition of intermediates. I'll say it again: by abolition of intermediate with the help of financial inclusion, by monetization of the rural economy, providing funds directly to the target groups, that is efficient targeting, reducing corruption, reducing nepotism, reducing delay, reducing the cost of transportation and distribution. It can reduce the red tape at that level. So you can define 5 or 6 benefits of direct benefit transfer, or you can say the direct benefit transfer scheme. And you can also suggest that this is going to take us forward towards cashless economy, digitization of economy, digitization of governance. So the benefits of direct benefit scheme can be defined in economic terms, in social terms, in political terms, and you can say that direct benefit scheme benefited in all the dimensions. So all the benefit that I suggested to you can be bifurcated in these 3 parts: economic benefits, socio-cultural benefit or social benefits, and you can say the benefit towards the political goals, where we try to fulfill the manifesto of various political parties. But at the same time, this direct benefit scheme have certain limitations that we cannot avoid. In this scheme, authentication of Aadhaar is still a big problem. Second, proper record keeping is still not there because we do not have electronic record keeping system at every place. The digital divide, that is the lack of digital awareness, is another problem. Poor network connectivity where the funds stay in between is the problem that we can define as the infrastructural problem. So you can define these limitations as organizational problem, as technical problem, as personal problems. Like we defined the benefits in 3 ways, you can define the limitations in 3 ways. So the digital divide, e-awareness, e-literacy, these can be defined as the personal problems. Network issue, infrastructural issue, connectivity issues, authentication of Aadhaar, these can be defined as the technical issues. And then bureaucratic hurdle, lack of training, the record keeping, all this can be defined as the organizational problem. And when you have defined all these problems, now you can move forward and say that yes, direct benefit scheme did help in the governmental service delivery system, but if we want to make it more competent, then we need to make sure that the e-infrastructure, e-connectivity and e-literacy, which are the base pillars of Digital India program, I'll say it again, e-infrastructure, e-connectivity and e-literacy, Digi-Infra, Digi-Connect, Digi-Literacy, which are the part of Digital India program, get implemented in an effective manner. Also, we need to associate it with efficient e-governance system. So with the help of Digital India connected to e-governance, this direct benefit schemes can do wonders in the governmental service delivery system. And this is how you can end this particular answer. Now let us move ahead with the next question. And the question says, besides the welfare schemes, India need deft management of inflation and unemployment to serve the poor and the underprivileged sections of the society. Discuss. Now, first thing that you need to understand, it is not deft management, it is deft management. And this word deft means skillful and quick. If you say in Hindi, chatur. So what the question try and say, it is very simple question, that to serve poor and underprivileged people, only welfare schemes cannot do. If you really want to serve underprivileged people, to help underprivileged people, then these welfare schemes needs the support of inflation management as well as employment management. So now you can divide your question into 3 parts, that there are 3 segments of your answer. 1, the positives and the negatives of the welfare scheme, or you can say what is welfare scheme, how they are going to help the poor, but only there are certain limitations with the welfare schemes. Now with these limitations, you will say that these limitations can be compensated with the help of inflation management and employment management. So here you need to define that what is inflation management and how it is going to compensate the drawbacks of the welfare schemes. Or you can say that it can be complementary to the welfare scheme for serving the poor. And what is employment management and how it is going to serve the poor. And with the trinity of these three, welfare scheme, inflation management, and employment management, you can ensure the development, or you can say again, sabka saath, sabka vikas, or development of the vulnerable section. Or you can say, with the help of this trinity, you can ensure Antyodaya. So if you are going to divide the word limit into that, you can suggest then these 250 words can be equally divided into these three. But if in these 250 words, if we are going to use initial 25 to enter into the question and last 25 to conclude, then we have 200 words or say 180 word. So we can use 60 to 70 for each as per the requirement. So this bifurcation must be clear in your mind when you are going to write 15 markers over here. Now, one by one, you can define all these 5 segments to complete this answer. In the beginning, what you can suggest that in a socialistic state, it is the duty of government to ensure the welfare of people with the help of various welfare programs. We started this process with Community Development Program, National Extension Program, and till now with the help of Ayushman, Ujjwala, we are there to directly attack poverty, unemployment with the help of various welfare programs. Another way to start the question can be that recently we have this hot discussion between the government, opposition and with the Supreme Court, which relates to freebies or the Revdi culture. And what is suggest that in the welfare schemes, we need to control the freebies to ensure that the viability and the sustainability of welfare schemes can be ensured. So with this freebies word, Revdi culture word, you can start or introduce this question that for the sustainability of welfare schemes, for the viability of welfare schemes, it is necessary that we can ensure or we can use the governmental fund in the efficient manner, in the economic manner. And to ensure that, it is required that welfare schemes have the equal support of some other processes that can help the vulnerable section, because only welfare schemes are not going to be sufficient for the development of the weaker section. So for the development of weaker section, apart from welfare schemes, we need to ensure inflation control and employment generation. Now, once you have introduced yourself to the answer, now you will enter the second part where you will suggest or you will explain that how these welfare schemes are going to help the poor. And here, with the help of some mention of certain welfare schemes, you can suggest that in our welfare schemes, we have the targeting of the BPL section. We have the governmental service delivery, direct benefit transfers to these weaker sections. And with the help of this, we can not only ensure economic sustainability, but also the empowerment of weaker section in the form of human resource development with skill development and other schemes. These welfare schemes not only help in providing the basic needs like roti, kapda, makan, but they are also helpful to empower weaker section, skill weaker section, their capacity building, so that they can emerge as earning members of the society. But the problem is that these welfare schemes are not reaching to the poorest of poor. Secondly, these welfare schemes are going to create a lot of fiscal deficit, as we have seen in early 90s. Due to these welfare schemes, fiscal management of government gets disturbed. Because of this, the developmental projects suffer. Because of these welfare schemes, we have seen that the citizens of the nation may have the tendency to get things in free. And because of these limitations, it is not possible that all the development of weaker sections can be ensured through welfare schemes only. So, in support of these welfare schemes, now we need to have inflation management, because this inflation directly attacks the BPL people. The price rise is having the severe effect on BPL people only. Again, this inflation is going to have the ethical aspect, where you can see that these people may get into crime for the search of speed money. You can also have the social aspects of inflation, where the human resource development in the form of education and health gets suffered due to malnourishment, due to lack of education. So due to this inflationary tendency, you can say that this inflation is going to create child labor, crime against women, prostitution, kind of social evil. And all this can suggest that all the benefit that we have derived from the welfare scheme can be nullified with inflation. So what you need to do is to control this inflation, or to manage this inflation with the help of monetary policy, you can control this inflation with efficient production and distribution system. You can control this inflation by price control. So in economics, you can have 3 or 4 measures which are generally used to control the inflation: the demand pull, the supply pull, the cost pull, and all those measures, like controlling the black marketing, controlling the stocking, enhancing the production, okay, administrative price mechanism, providing subsidy. And with the help of all these things, you can suggest that providing subsidy can have the inflationary effect, but I'm saying it that with by providing controlling the price in a manner that you can have governmental control over price. So this is how you can control the inflation. So you can define 2 or 3 things that you have studied in economics for the inflationary control. Now once you have defined this, then again you will come here and you will say that if there is unemployment, this unemployment is going to nullify the effect of welfare schemes, because when there is unemployment, then there will be a problem of income generation, savings, investment, production, growth rate. There is a vicious cycle of unemployment which is going to create lack of skill development, poverty, malnourishment. That is, you need to define the social, economic and the psychological effect of unemployment and say that these ill effects of unemployment are going to dilute the benefits coming from the welfare schemes. So, employment management is the key to supplement the effect of the welfare scheme. And here, the idea of employment management should come in a way that from employment we will go to the idea of self-employment. So the schemes like Manrega can definitely help, but apart from Manrega, we need to go through the area of self-employment where rather than job seeker, you can become the job provider. So the various schemes like startup, stand up, Mudra scheme, few of the unemployment related schemes you can mention here, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Skill Development, and you can say this Rural Livelihood Mission, Urban Livelihood Mission. So you can mention 2 or 3 schemes by saying that with the help of 2-dimensional approach of employment generation and self-employment promotion, you can control this problem of employment, and in this way it will help in enhancing the effect of the welfare schemes. And from there you can come to the end, and here you can suggest that, as said in the question, that to serve the purpose of poor and the underprivileged section, only the idea of welfare scheme is not sufficient. These welfare schemes should be supplemented with effective fiscal management, financial management, human resource development, digitization of economy. And when you go through all these things along with welfare scheme, then definitely it is going to have effect in underprivileged and poor people. This is how you can answer this question, this 15 marker or 250 words. And as you can see that in this question, there are 3 different segments. And if you can understand the question, then writing this answer is very easy, because here you need to define welfare scheme, their positives, their negatives. From the negatives, you go to this inflation management, then effect of inflation on poor people, then controlling the inflation, effect of unemployment on poor people, then controlling it. So in this way, you can answer this question. So now we will discuss the last question. And the last question, which is again a 15 marker 250 word, it says, do you agree with the view that the increasing dependence on the donor agencies for the development reduces the importance of community participation in the developmental process? So the question has 2 sides. One suggests that for the development or the developmental projects, when we get dependent upon donor agencies, so when there is dependence on donor agencies for the purpose of development, then participation of people get reduced. So it is saying that when the role of donor agency increases, then the participation of community decreases. So first you need to understand the crux of the question, and the crux of the question is this only. They want you to justify your answer, and when they are asking you to justify your answer, that means you need to put logic in the favor of that how the dependence of donor agency is increased and how it is going to reduce the participation. So in simple term, if you'll say that if you tell the positives of the donor agency, then it will suggest that yes, in our developmental process, we do need the assistance of the donor agencies. And if you define the negatives of the donor agencies, then it is going to say that due to this, the community participation is decreasing. So in this answer, in the beginning only, you will suggest the state of India far as the funding of the developmental process is concerned, that whether we are getting funding from the foreign countries, foreign institutions, international economic institutions, or on the other side we are giving donations to the other countries. So whether India is still dependent on the donor institutions or not, this we can define in the beginning to get into this question. And once we are there in the question, then we will suggest that what donor agency is all about and what is their role in the developmental projects or developmental process. That is the positives of them. Then you will define what community participation is all about and how this community participation is reduced due to donor agencies. And then at the end, you need to find a midway where the positives of both the donor agencies and the community participation can be ensured for the purpose of success of the developmental projects. So you can enter this question by saying that India trying to become 5 trillion economy and donor to the various developmental developmental projects in various countries is still one of the top 10 donation, top 10 receivers of the funds for the developmental projects. So India, in spite of emerging as a powerful economy, still need funds from the foreign nations, foreign institutions for the purpose of various developmental projects due to its huge population or due to the backwardness in the different sectors. You can also enter the question by saying that in the era of globalization, what we have seen that development is not solely the work of government. Now, in the Trinity model of governance, the government, the private sector, and the civil society all contribute a bit for the process of development. And here, both private sector and civil society can work as the donor agencies for the purpose of the developmental projects. So there can be 2-3 ways to enter into this question. One, while defining the state of your economy. Another way can be the Trinity model of the governance. The next can be the way that due to our backwardness in various sectors, we need the funds from the foreign countries due to our fiscal management, or you can say the volatile fiscal situation, we need the funds, or you can say due to our welfare schemes or the nature of welfare government, we need funds from the foreign countries, foreign institutions. So in the beginning, what you are going to say that yes, we do need funding from the donor agencies for the purpose of development that you can define in a different way. And once you have defined this, now this is time to define what these donor agencies are all about. So these donor agencies can be the international institutions like World Bank, like IMF, like ADB, like BRICS Bank, like US Ed system, funds from European Union, funds from Japan. And these donor agencies also work in the form of various NGOs from the top corporates like the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, like the Zuckerberg Foundation. So they can also work as the donor agencies. So you can have the donations to the government, both from the corporates, from the civil societies, from the international institutions. And these donor agencies do play a vital role in the developmental project by A, filling the fiscal gap, strengthening the fiscal position, need of funds, providing the innovation and technology, assisting the welfare schemes at the core level, like we have educational schemes, health schemes funded by World Bank, funded by IMF. IMF funds us for the benefit of balance of payment. We have BRICS Bank, we have ADB for the purpose of developmental projects. You can also suggest that with the help of these donor agencies, we can have the financial affinity with the other nation, which in turn help us to develop or build relationship with those nations. The development of social sector initiatives. So our social sector initiative, our financial sector initiatives, the development of vulnerable sections, all this can be assisted with the help of various donor agencies. But the problem with these donor agencies is that these donor agencies are going to have their inherent agenda, and this agenda can be of crony capitalism. This agenda can be of economic colonialism. These donor agencies will apply the top-down approach of development, where the developmental agenda will set from the outside. So it is a kind of question to the economic sovereignty of the nation. We have seen the role of donor agencies when we have to apply LPG or the SAP program, Structural Adjustment Program, in the influence of IMF. World Bank assisted us with the conditionality of good governance. So the next problem with these donor agency is to have conditional assistance, which again questions the very sovereignty of the nation. It is also said that these donor agencies do have the country where these donor agencies belong. These donor agency works with the agenda of that particular nation, and if you have a kind of disturbed relation with that nation, then these agencies are going to stop the funds, and this is going to hamper your developmental projects. A new concern with these donor agencies, especially with the international NGOs and corporates, arrived when they are contributing for the purpose of money laundering, for the purpose of terror funding. So this agenda of theirs needs to be stopped, and we have a Foreign Contribution Regulation Act amended in 2010 to stop this, that we study in internal security. The cancellation of the license of various NGOs in this regard is there to understand. The idea of controlling the economy, the idea of economic colonization, the idea of influencing the culture so that they can sell their product, the idea of insensitive development by capturing the jal, jungle, zameen of the locals. All this can suggest that these donor agencies do have an autocratic, imposing idea of development. And whenever there is autocratic imposing idea of development, then definitely it is against the democratic participation process. And this democratic participation process is the process of community participation. So the way these donor agencies help in the developmental projects, you can say that these donor agencies are going to reduce the community participation, because community participation needs bottom-up approach and they will have the top-down approach. Community participation needs sensitive development where they do not have sensitive approach towards the local. Community participation needs decentralized planning where these donor agencies have centralized way of development from top. Community participation needs awareness, discussion with the locals, but in these donor agencies project, we hardly see any kind of discussion with the local people and the local groups. And that is why what we have seen, that in present time, various developmental projects in the various areas in India, whether it is related to mining, whether it is related to land acquisition, whether it is related to electricity plant establishment, we have various problems coming from the side of local people, whether it is displacement of people, whether it is cutting the forest, whether it is land acquisition. All these things are going to reduce, or you can say restrict the developmental projects. So at the end, what you will suggest, that what we need, that while taking funds from these donor agencies, the government should work as a bridge between these donor agencies and the local people or the local civil society. And government is going to tell the local people about the benefits from the funds coming from the donor agency, but at the same time, they are going to share the sentiments of the local people to these donor agencies, so there won't be any conflict in the future in the process of development. So, when you are going to get the funds from the donor agencies, if it is more government to government or with the assistance of local people, then definitely it is going to ensure the development and also the participation of the local people. That is what we call the community participation. So at the end, you can mention it like this, that the government should work as a bridge between the two, and this is how we can derive the midway between the benefits of donor agency and the benefits of community participation. So this is how you can answer the different questions which are related to governance this year. As I said, that the questions of governance are not only confined into the paper 2, but these questions are there in paper 4 also. Some of the questions here are associated in the field from the field of economy also. So as we all know, that governance is the part of polity, it is the part of ethics, it is the part of social justice, and it is the part of economic management also. So from all these areas, the applied aspect can be the question of governance. What we have identified this year, we have discussed in this session, and I hope that this will help you in the future exams for the purpose of answering the questions of governance. Thank you very much.